In this tutorial, we are going to be looking into performing lookups with a combination of index and match. If you haven't used VLOOKUP before, I would recommend you watch the VLOOKUP tutorial before you watch index and match, because index and match are, in a way, an advanced version of a lookup. I am going to link the tutorial for the VLOOKUP below in the comment box, so make sure to watch the VLOOKUP tutorial before. What I have here is a table with fruit names, then the fruit ID for each of these fruits, the price before tax, the tax, and the total price. And I have a couple of answers that I will want to answer based on this data, and that I'm going to answer with index match. But before we do that, I'm going to explain to you match and index separately, so you understand how the function works. So let's start with match. What match is going to do, and I have added definitions here for you for future reference. So match is going to search for a specified item within a range, and it's going to return the position of that item. And it can return either the row number or the column number for that item. So say in the example here, I'm looking for clementines, and I want to find in what row the word clementines or the fruit clementines is. So I'm going to start equals match. My search key is going to be clementines because this is what I'm looking for, so I'm going to click on clementines. My range, so I know the column where clementines is, and I'm looking for the row. So if I know the columns, I just click on the column, which is A. And then my search type, this is like in the VLOOKUP. This is going to be a 0 because we are only looking for exact values. I press return, and match is telling me that clementines is in row 7, which is correct. Now I can do the same to find the column, so equals match. Again, my search key is clementines. My range, so in this case my range has to be the row, so I just select the row here where clementines is. And again 0 for an exact result, and match is telling me that clementine is in column 1. So either you have the row and you find the column, or you have the column and you find the row. Not super useful, but fun. Okay, let's do index. What index is going to do is going to return you a cell, so the value that is within the cell, based on the intersection of row and column. So let's start typing. Equals index, and reference. Reference is basically the range. So in this case, we could do A to E, and then it's asking you what is the row that I have to look for. And we actually know based on match that the row is 7. And what is the column that I have to look for? The column is 1. And we already know that the answer here is clementines. I press return, and index has returned me the value clementines. So you have to know the row and you have to know the column to be able to find what you're looking for. So again, not super useful alone. Now let's look into putting both together, index and match, to perform a lookup. In the example here, what I have is a fruit ID. And for this fruit ID, I want to know what is the name of the fruit that has this ID, and what is the total price of this fruit. So the first thing we are going to do, we are going to use index match to perform a lookup to the left. And this is something that the VLOOKUP cannot do. In the VLOOKUP, your ID, your search key, has to be to the leftmost column. All of the remaining data has to be to the right. So this is a limitation of the VLOOKUP that does not exist with index match. With index match, you can have your ID in the middle of the column and you can look left. Let's start typing it. So equals index, and now I need my reference. So remember, reference is the array where your data is. So in this case, we are only going to use one column. We are going to use the fruit column, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the fruit name, comma, and now in row, it's asking me what row it is, but I don't know. So what I can do, I can use match to find the row for me. So we're going to start typing match. And now it's asking for our search key. What is your search key? Our search key in this case is the fruit ID, which is in H13, so I just clicked on it. Now it's asking me for range. Where do I want it to look for the fruit ID? I want to look it in column B. And the last thing I need to give it is the search type. I want an exact result, so that's a 0. Return. So index match is telling me that the fruit name for this fruit ID is lime. And we can see here 26.99 is lime, so that is correct. Now we also want to find the total price for lime. But before we do that, let's just open the function and read it again. So I have started with index, and I have only used, so let me show you how the index function looks like. So the index function, you need a reference, which is the range, and then row and column. You will see that we used the reference, which was column A, and then for row we used the match function, and we didn't add anything for column, because column here is not mandatory. The reason it's not mandatory is because in my range I only had one column. So there's nowhere for the function to look, right? There is only one column. I don't need to come here and tell it where to look because it's obvious there is only one column. I am going to have to use column when I have a range with multiple columns, and that's what we're going to do now in total price. So let's go ahead and start the total price. Equals index. Now what is my range? Now I want to use multiple columns. I'm going to use from A to E. It's asking for row, so again I'm going to use match to find the row. Match. Where is my search key? So my search key again is the fruit ID. Where is the range? It's where the fruit ID is, which is in column B. And search type is a 0 because I only want exact results. Now, because I use the range from A to E, I need to tell index what column from A to E it has to look into. So I'm going to add a comma, and again I'm gonna use match to tell the function what column to look at. So match. What is my search key? So my search key here is going to be the title of the column, which is, I have typed it here already, it's total price. So I'm looking for the total price, so it's in G15. What is the range? So my range is row 1. All of the columns in row 1. And my search type, that's a 0 because I only want exact results. I press return, and my total price for lime is 591.3, which is here, and is correct. So I do realize this is a little bit more complicated. I have added the functions here for you, so let's revisit the two-way lookup. And again, this is called a two-way lookup because it's looking both at columns and at rows, which again a VLOOKUP could not do. So let's compare the function to what we actually wrote. So it started equals index. Our reference was a range from A to E, so all of our table. And then we went to row, and the row is what I highlighted here in blue. To find the row, we used match. We used H13 as our key, which is basically the fruit ID. Then we asked the match function to look in column B for that ID and return an exact value. And that's how we found our row. Then we went into the column, which is here highlighted in red. To find the column, again, we used match. Our search key was G15, because that's total price. That's what we were looking for. That was the title of the column. The range was the first row that has the titles. So A1 to E1. And if we scroll up, that's the range. And then a 0 because we only want exact results. So there you go. 2 ways of performing lookups, which are not possible with a VLOOKUP.